Turn that down. Turn this up. And we are live. Hello. Welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Denver, the stream. Thank you so much for joining me. All of you hear me say every show that this is the high point of my week, meeting with you and talking with you and bringing you very, very cool. What?
Your music is still on.
Slower?
Your music is still on. All the way down to the end. There you go.
Okay. Technical difficulties, as usual. Okay, let's try that again. Hi, welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show. I have an amazing guest for you today, but before we go there, let me remind you of a couple things. The tagline for the show, as you know, is Igniting a Renaissance of Spirit, and I want you to leave this show inspired, feeling like you really can walk from the amazing sort of crazy 2020 into a fullness in 2021, living your dream and launching yourself and igniting within you your cravings and your desires, following your soul's journey, following that craving. My goal for the next several shows is to bring you guests that help you find that place within inside of you. So that's the show. You know, my great sponsor is veteranspride.org. They build shadow boxes for veterans, and they're asking for donations so that they can make these shadow boxes for the veterans for free, because they're a little expensive. Veteranspride.org. And you know, one of the goals of this show all year has that each of us would be a philanthropist at the end of the year. Remember that goal? $5 a month makes you a philanthropist, and it's a great month to do some kind of donation. Veteranspride.org is one, and just so you know, my other favorite one is the MS Society. Any little bit of money helps, and I'm just going to encourage you to be generous and receive the energy back that generosity brings to you. Also, and you know I do this each week, but I'm getting so many great comments from all of you about my book, The Way of the Well. You can find it on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. It's a spiritual romantic adventure. It's really pretty good. You should read it. And with any luck, the second book, Dark Fire, is going to be out early in 2021. I'm in edits and rewrites right now, and no telling how long that'll take. So that is enough about me, though. Again, thank you so incredibly much for being here. I have today the first of some incredible guests that I'm going to have on. And as you also know, I don't just bring somebody on that has not inspired me. I don't bring random people on the show. But I bring people on where I have had a connection to them, either through their videos or their writing or one-on-one experience. And Erin Carrera is going to be my guest, and I have had that experience with her. Let me tell you that she is a coach and an actor and a singer and a bit of a dancer and a writer and just this amazing one. And we met kind of coach to coach, helping each other figure out about different aspects of our careers and launching that. And she had a very, very powerful effect on me, and I'm hoping she has that effect on you. So Erin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here with you, Lisa.
Yay! I know, this is going to be so fun, and so all of you, you're going to want to watch this show twice, let me just tell you. So Erin, I want to dig in and start with the fact that, as you know, the tagline, right, igniting, inspiring a renaissance of spirit in others.
Love it.
You do that. You have done that. You inspire others. And what is amazing to me is when I talk about a renaissance of spirit, you are the quintessential Renaissance woman. I just listed these things. I've seen your videos on YouTube. I've seen you sing, you dance a bit. I've seen like snippets of acting. I've read some of your writing. That's an amazing journey. And what I would love is could you start us and take us on at least part of that journey with you as a way to just start the conversation?
I would love to. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for listing my many things that I do. This is my resume. It's a scroll. I think, when I was little and people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would always say a movie star and a singer and a novelist and a Broadway star. They'd be like,
Okay.
Here I am in small town Minnesota where, you're going to be like at fanciest, probably a doctor, which is great, or most likely you're going to be a teacher or, work at the bank or run a small business. And that's great. I was like, just constantly a little bit like off in my world of imagination. And I was already writing one-woman shows and performing them for family and friends by the time I was little. I think I wrote my first book when I was 7, and I illustrated it and everything. It was a medieval romance / action adventure. Anyway.
Wait, at 7? You had a medieval romance adventure, and we have to add artist to this list because you also illustrated. Okay, keep going.
My visual art skills have not improved since then, however. So let me tell you, I wish, I would love to paint, but that's a whole other lifetime, I guess. So ultimately, flash forward to all of these different things I've done. Usually it's 1 or sometimes 3 at a time, but it's just the way I've always been. I've always needed to express myself musically. I've always needed to express myself as a writer. Sometimes they come together, and sometimes one takes over for a little while. The problem with me is, of my 3 major passions in life, which are singing, acting, and writing, if I do only one, another one starts bumping up against me, sort of like, almost like labor pains or something, and it starts pushing me, and I will lose sleep, or I will start getting really crabby. I will start feeling the effects of not doing one of my other passions / talents if I don't engage in it somehow. So I'm not really starting from the beginning, I suppose, and walking you through it, because it's sort of circular for me. It's sort of, I guess it's part of the divine feminine, right, where it's not necessarily linear. Nothing about my life has really been linear. It's been like circles and then circles and then circles. I will say that in high school, I did all 3. I ended up having to do a few of my own independent studies. I petitioned to do my own independent studies in creative writing, and one was in music. But what I had to do to prove some sort of academic value is I directed a girls' choir in high school, and that's just how I've always been. I am lucky that the school let me create some of these independent studies, and that there were teachers that believed in me and helped me with that. And then I hit my 20s, and my 20s were really rough, partially because of my own personal drama, meaning the way that I was raised by lovely people, but the sort of limitations of that met up with my own sort of lack of wisdom about trusting myself. And so in my 20s, I wrote plays that got produced. I was doing one-woman shows. I was doing burlesque. I was in a TV series in Minneapolis. I was still doing everything, but I was doing it sort of not in alignment with my true spirit, but sort of in a rebellious way. And at the same time, I therefore faced a lot of personal drama. And by the time I got to my late 20s and I recognized that the way I was living wasn't really sustainable for me, that's when I finally moved to Los Angeles. And I started really pursuing in earnest my skills and talents at the level of my true ambition, which I had been hiding, because I'm an ambitious person. Now I've come to a point in my life where I'm an artist dedicated to my various crafts because of the love of them, and because of a reason beyond commerciality. Because, when I was saying, if I had let go of one of my passions, that muse starts getting my attention any way it can, whether it's in the middle of the night or constantly showing me like billboards and music that will be related to some idea I have. She just won't let me go. However, I also feel that when I chose to honor myself at the level that I believe is possible, then suddenly all these things opened up for me. So what I'm saying is whatever happens on a career level, business level, commercial level is almost sort of gravy or in second place compared to, I really believe in honoring the spirit that has called to me in the first place, to be a multidisciplinary artist and teacher and friend and fairy godmother.
I do love the fairy godmother piece too. I've seen you talk about that before. So I just want to dig in a little, because I know, and I'm hoping that our listeners have clearly caught this piece, that we have permission to not choose just one thing. And I think that for so many of us, the road is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then there's a one thing. And I know my one thing changed. It kept changing. And people kept telling me I couldn't do that. I had to like pick the one thing and do the one thing. And for many of us, that does work for some people, but for many of us, we have what I call a Renaissance mind. I can't just do one thing. Because then I'm bored with that thing, or as you said, the muse of the other talent or skill or craving calls to you. So that is, I just thank you for saying that, because I want our listeners to truly pay attention to the fact that we're multifaceted beings and our souls are multifaceted, and some people have one straight road and the rest of us have this circuitous spiral we dance on. And you've clearly done that.
Thank you. I think one of the keys is that it's just one thing at a time. It's like, in my life, if people were to look at how I time manage, because I use what I call the college syllabus approach. Meaning I have like every Sunday night I revisit my priorities for the coming week. And then I list my schedule not by time, because I might wake up at a different time each day, but by priority. These are the things I must do. And these are the things that I would really like to get done. And then these are the things that would be gravy, right? And that way I've developed that over the years, because there were times when I might miss things that I don't really care about, like, paying bills on time. And there's consequences to that. I'd rather not suffer.
Absolutely.
So I have had to build that into my daily syllabus to check in on, do I have a bill due today? Like, literally. It's not one of the things that I'm passionate about, clearly. But that said, yes, because if you're, this behind me is my piano covered in my green velvet cloth. And one of my pianos, I should say, I have a couple in my tiny little apartment here. But if you're rehearsing, you're not also probably working out, or you're not consciously trying to multitask. I might wash the dishes and sing through songs, but that's different. Like if I'm playing piano, and even then, I try not to, it's not very satisfying in the end. It's if you're working on a piece by Mozart, you're concentrating on that piece, and then after the hour that you've practiced, or however long, 3 hours, 30 minutes, whatever it is, then you move on to something else. So it's even the opera singers who are only opera singers, they're not necessarily singing 8 hours a day. They're also teaching and exercising and raising children and running errands and going to the grocery store and having meetings and, all of that all day long, everything that goes into that. So the idea that we're only doing one thing ever, there's probably a very finite number of people for whom that's true. And I think we can embrace, especially if we are people who have these multiple needs, we can embrace them. And I also want to bring up one other thing about that, which is in Iceland, there are many people who have 3 or 4 professions. Perhaps only one is a money-making profession, but in Iceland, it is not frowned upon to be a banker and a dancer and a novelist. I was reading about this cultural aspect of them, and I thought, well, isn't that amazing? So maybe they might make their living as a banker, and it in no way denigrates the value of their literary career. It's just a part of the entirety of it all, and it might feed itself back and forth. And I just thought, isn't it great? What is it about our culture that makes us think? You know, like when I first moved out here, people were like, you can't be a writer and an actor and a singer. I was like, what are you talking about? Barbra Streisand. Like, although to be fair, she fought so hard, you know,
Absolutely.
For everything she accomplished, right?
Yes.
And paved the way for a lot of us, and women like that. But there's always been Mae West, you know?
Absolutely.
There's
Parton.
always been Dolly Parton,
Parton.
one of our greatest of today, right?
Right. Pink.
So many.
Right. Pink, singer, dancer, actress, advocate. I mean, just you could go on and on and on. And with women and men, but we're talking about women right now, who do that. So and again, we walk through those doors that other women opened for us. And this may switch our topic just a little, but it seems to me that you're then committed to helping other women come through the doorways. Somebody opened it for you, you go through, you widen it, and what does that look like? How are you, in other ways, inspiring or helping other women to walk through those doorways?
Well, thank you for asking. The sort of most prominent way right now is that I do have an online school I've been creating called the School for Heroines. And it is a combination of writing and life coaching, and it is designed for women. I mean, it's for everybody, but sorry, by the way, I live in Los Angeles. I don't know if you can hear that outside.
I grew up in Los Angeles. It's just white noise to me.
Noises. Yes. I live very close to Cedars-Sinai, so periodically when I'm doing like interviews, the sirens will go off from some ambulance that will blast on its way to Cedars-Sinai, and so I'm just like, LA.
There you go, LA. I know.
So, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge it in case people could hear it.
That's okay.
So the School for Heroines is a combination of writing and life coaching processes to help people really get in touch with what they really want, and then to honor that and feel brave enough to follow that to wherever it leads. And this I began during the shutdown of coronavirus this year, but it's been a long time in the making. Because one of the things I realized, I don't know, really young, is that when I go do something, I help others, just my very act of doing, like you said in the beginning, my very act of doing these things somehow like helps other people, other women especially, know that they too can do this. If I can do this, they can. If I can, you know, at 28 years old, move to Los Angeles and make a go of it, they too can do the same thing if that's what they want. Whatever their version of that journey is, if it's true to them, if it's true to your journey, if it's true to your heart, and your reason for doing it is strong, you can do anything you want. I learned this in this is like a kind of an embarrassing way, but for years and years when I was young, I've always been in bands or performed or sung, and there were several years where I was in a band. It was me and like 4 boys in a band. We'd tour all over. And we would sing, we had original music, but we would also do cover songs to make money. We'd pepper original gigs with cover gigs. It's a dirty little secret in the independent music world. But anyway, we would do these covered gigs, and I would sing Heart, a lot of 80s and 90s and early 2000s female rock hits. And whenever I would sing a Janis Joplin song, inevitably there was always somebody in the audience who always wanted to come up and sing it with us. And it used to, in the beginning, annoy me because it was like, this is not karaoke, get your own band, right? I was a real brat about it. Until I was complaining to my girlfriend Erica once, and she was like, well, it's just that it's a compliment, Erin. You don't get the compliment. You make them feel like they could do it too. Right. And once she said that, I was like, oh, well then I'm going to let them come up and sing with me. And I started having, if people wanted to come up and sing on Janis Joplin or a couple other songs, I would be like, yeah, come on up and sing. And it just opened my mind. Wow. You know, it helped me see how abundant music is. Like that you're not, in fact, you don't lose your credibility by letting people join you. You actually improve it and increase it because you're inviting people to share in the joy of music. So I'm really grateful for my honest friend and for that experience, because it really helped me see, oh no, helping other people, I shouldn't say enabling, empowering,
Yes.
empowering their gifts. There's actually only abundance in that, only
Absolutely.
abundance.
It's another form of generosity. For me, it could actually be another form of philanthropy. That we're creating space for other people, we're helping other people share. We think of philanthropy always as people who give huge amounts of money, and yet sometimes it's giving kindness, it's giving opportunity, it's giving somebody an awareness of their own potential. So you're a philanthropist in that way, which I love. Can we circle back to, because the heroine's journey is different than the hero's journey, and you and I had this conversation recently where I talked about somebody telling me, and they did a neutral read of my next novel, and they said, yeah, you didn't actually follow the hero's journey. And I thought, well, I'm sure I followed it the way it works for me. And then you and I discussed this, and so as two women who are always sort of reinventing the path in front of them, can you talk about, and sort of both, it's a two-part question. You talked about how you came to this heroine's journey process, and we'll talk about that second, but just let's now talk about the heroine's journey itself and how that's different. And please tell people right now, how do they find that? Because they're going to want to sign up for that. So how do they find the School for Heroines? Tell me that first.
Okay, so the School for Heroines, and there's currently a free mini course available for people there. It's at a website called Teachable. So they can go to theschoolforheroines.teachable.com. They can also go to any of my Instagrams, the School for Heroines or Erin Carrera LA, and they can click on the link in bio, and that will bring them to a link tree where there's options for School for Heroines, free stuff, performer stuff. So but it's theschoolforheroines.teachable.com. So Teachable is the site that's hosting my current course, the free mini course. And then in early 2021, I'll be releasing a longer course that will be called Write a New Story. Well, I have people, I walk them through a process of choosing what they want to work on, whether it's healing something or creating something new or fulfilling a long-held dream. And we walk through a writing process using all of these different processes and aspects of the craft of writing that then also becomes a process on a transformational level for yourself and for your soul, because you're ending up writing a story about yourself as the heroine in your story, which is ultimately, you know, you and I, we're on heroines' journeys. We're the heroines of our stories. We're empowering other heroines. And I guess we'll start by talking a little bit about, you know, we're living in a time where we often refer to the feminine in relation to the masculine, which is where we are. So fine, good, that's where we are. Joseph Campbell has The Hero's Journey, which is the #1 storytelling sort of story template in Hollywood. It's not the only story form, it's not the only way of telling story, but especially if you watch, say, Marvel movies, you see it sort of rampantly across, like Marvel movies, where the hero gets the call, they refuse the call, then there's an inciting incident that makes it imperative they can't not answer the call, then they have to spend time gathering skills and or allies and or weapons, they have to go against their great enemy, and there's this moment where all is lost, and then using all of the skills they've learned over the course of the movie, they are able to triumph over the enemy or the obstacle, the end.
Yeah,
well,
Star
the
Wars.
heroines,
Star Wars. Boom. Right.
Perfect example. And we're used to that. We're used to that, and we're used to that sort of the same way we're used to certain pop song structures, or the same way we're used to, I don't know, A² plus B² equals C². You know, we're used to equations in life that we've just got, but that doesn't make them the only equations in life. And I feel that one of the things that's been just burgeoning in entertainment, in arts, but also just across the world is the idea that maybe there are other ways of thinking, other ways of conceiving what it means to be alive, how to live, how to approach life, how to approach who I am. And so, for example, when you and I were talking about, I wanted to sort of lay the groundwork. So we're talking about the heroine's journey is different because the feminine is different than the masculine. The setup is different. Think about for people who identify as women, for people who have feminine hormones, right, who are dealing with feminine hormones, the cycle is 28 days. For people who identify as masculine and have the masculine hormones, the cycle is 24 hours.
Right.
You know, there's all these differences. And so a heroine's journey, which is on a, for example, writing level, just a different way of approaching craft, we will think about how the divine feminine actually approaches the obstacle and approaches her allies. But more so, it's not just over. It doesn't go, okay, then I triumph over the obstacle and then the end.
Right, yes, yes.
There's these series of, and now we give back, and now we create for community, and now we have to live this for a little while in our embodied experience. And it makes for a different experience of receiving story. And story form is important only in that it helps an audience member or a reader understand how to experience and receive the experience they're having through this story. I don't know if I got a little too esoteric there.
No, I love it. I'm gonna sort of, I'm gonna unwind a little of it. There's definitely, I think, a difference in every spiritual tradition I have studied. People will say, you know, masculine energy is not feminine energy. I realize people are non-binary. People come in all shapes, sizes, and forms, and there is a difference between what we call masculine energy and what we call feminine energy.
Yeah.
And that there are also different spiritual paths to match that energy. There are ways we travel. And for the masculine, I do think it can be sort of a one and done, right? You know, I had this adventure, great, give me the award, done, movie's over. And then the women come behind and clean up the room and, right, make sure everybody is taken care of. And in our lives, it is so much more about using that gift, creating community, tending and befriending, sharing, the generosity of it. And then I like what you said about receiving the story, because then I think we also receive the power, the superpower, or the gift. And then we don't really receive it until we use it. And then it continues to grow. That's a different storyline than I got it, I used it, right, done.
Right,
and, and it's much more that spiral. I think definitely for people listening, and definitely men too, but that we can see places in our life where it isn't just set the goal and get there. Because then you're at the top of a mountain and there's, now what?
Right, exactly.
Right.
And did you make sure that you smelled all of the pine trees and all of the flowers along the way? And did you drink water enough along the way? And all these different, you know, part of it is that we're used to, in the West, the Enlightenment way of thinking. And I think that's great. Like, it's helped us in so many ways. It
has.
Right? Absolutely. Created all sorts of wonderful processes and scientific methods and things that are really important and have worked really well for us.
Really well.
I mean, really well. But hasn't been holistically complete, that's all.
Correct.
When you, say, go to other countries where they're not as entrenched in this Western Enlightenment, dare I say, patriarchal format, then you begin to sort of see on accident or experience on accident different ways of being, different forms of approaching life. I'm thinking even just about time scheduling, right? Like, like we have a more rigid idea of time for better and for worse, right? It's great because then, like, if you go to Berlin, the train arrives when it says it's going to arrive, right? Versus if you're in, say, I don't know, you know, Rishikesh, India, it might arrive in a time frame, maybe a little before, maybe long after, right? It's just a different sense of time. And then, of course, there's the downside of that, too, because then suddenly you've got in our culture people who think they need to be a millionaire by 30, married by 31, 3 children by 33, or else they're failures, you know, and it's like, that's just not true at all. That's just the concept that you've adopted without realizing you adopted it.
Yes, and
So,
it puts incredible pressure on people. I have clients who are in their 20s who are having quarter-life crises. And I remember the first time a young woman turned to me and said, I didn't know 25 would be so hard. And I reflected back and thought, actually, I thought it was great. Like, what's happened? What's happened? So let me just reintroduce you to, if you are just joining me, this is the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, The Stream, with my amazing, incredible, quintessential Renaissance woman guest, Erin Pereira, and you can find her on her website, on LinkedIn, I think, yes, on Instagram, and she has this School for Heroines that'll be launching in 2021, and you have so many more things we're going to talk about, right? But okay, so can we do this? How your School for Heroines is tools. I mean, it's the philosophy, which we've just talked about, but it's also tools, and not just write the story, but it's tools to help with that. And how did you find those tools?
No, these are tools, because there's writing involved. There's like, for example, there's journal prompts. There's actual writing. It's fun. It's not like homework writing. Nobody's grading you, etc.
Right.
It's for your personal expression and creativity. But there's also physical movement as part of this. And I will say that over the many years that I've been doing, I think when I was in high school or junior high, my mother was reading Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and therefore so was I. I would say she's been reading Shakespeare and Young to me since I was, and because she would read aloud, since I was very little. And that sort of was between Shakespeare and Young and then Clarissa Pinkola Estes. That was sort of the first stirrings. And then, of course, the church that I grew up singing at was across the street from a New Age bookstore in my small hometown of Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, which is the last place you'd think there'd be one. But the woman who ran it was amazing. And I was always very attracted, especially to sort of transformational, esoteric, spiritual writing. And then over the years, I think, I went to treatment for eating disorders, long story, but basically I remember what I wanted for my birthday that year was a Tony Robbins CD set. So that's what I got. I say all of this to say, from as far back as I can remember, I've been interested in spiritual processes and transformational processes and the mystical. And so from there, I've done everything from working with gurus in India and doing Kundalini yoga and meditation and breath work. I went to massage school. I got trained in doing energy work and chakra clearing. I was a meditation student, then meditation teacher. I've done 12-step group work. I've done different processes with different teachers. So it's sort of either borrowed or stumbled upon. Everything that I'm teaching is either borrowed or stumbled upon. Some sort of some of the processes are from 12-step work, but that are taken out of the context of 12-step and used in a way that worked for me as a process to understand my part in a story, situation, or event, and then surrender an outcome. And I'm kind of shortcutting a little bit. But so it's all stuff I do myself, I've done myself, and basically either piecemeal together or discovered, recreated. A few of the things are going to be very clearly like, oh, I see she was inspired by 12-step work here, right? And I think, like any coach, we're just using all of these different tools that we pick up in our toolkit, right? Okay, absolutely. Well, here I've done all of this work, many years of doing tarot card readings and astrology, so let's borrow from these archetypes. Let's learn from these sort of iconic symbols what the meaning might be in our own life and identify from that. So that's where all these tools came from. One of the things that I think is really important, especially when we're talking about the feminine, the heroine, is the piece about the body.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
So much life coaching and spiritual work and esoteric work can become very intellectual, especially in our culture, because, you know, we grew up going to school and learning about the Battle of Saratoga, and that James Madison was president during 1812, and the three branches of government. You know, you learn facts and figures.
That's right.
Very important stuff. But you're sitting in a chair all day, right? Except for that 1 hour of phys ed and maybe if you play a sport or dance or something. And when you're doing spiritual work and you're transforming, your mind might get something long before your body, your nervous system, the neuroplasticity of the training of your nervous system, long before your brain has changed the triggers and signals that it goes through. So the more we can allow our bodies, so for example, if you're doing, one of the things that will be in the course coming out next year is that once you do a transformation, I want people to dance the transformation.
Absolutely.
You don't have to choreograph anything. Even if you're like my dad and this is your dance, right? This is my dad's move. Right? This is his move.
It works.
But it's like,
put the music on, it works.
Right? If you're thinking about, I am releasing one way of being and opening up to a new way of being with regard to, say, you know, myself and finances. If you can start to like change the way your body moves when you start thinking about money and start associating in your body different movements, like here I'm doing like a slow seated Carlton, you know, Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But you know, that, like whatever it is, it might seem a little silly, but your body is going to start changing because it's going to be like, wait, normally when we're thinking about money, we're tensing up, we're shrinking, we're getting all like this, and instead you're not only loosening up, but you're moving the body in these wavelengths that are normally associated with pleasure and freedom. What? Right? So that's sort of one of the things that I think is so important that sometimes gets missed.
I know, and I really want to dig in just a bit on that. And I know we have more to get to, but from my Outward Bound days, they would say to us, your brain will stop before your body. So your brain will give up. So once your brain stops, just let it tune out and do its thing, because we're not where we need to be yet, so you're going to keep hiking. And I remember that happening. And it was winter spring in the Cascades, and my brain was somewhere, and my body was walking, because I wasn't going to get left in the snow in the Cascades. I know that when I get stuck, I'll go to my piano, and I'm not that great, but just both hands moving changes things. I love the tango, and I'll put music on when I'm stuck in my writing and just tango with myself. And there is something about moving the body. I do believe that you touched on it when you talked about sort of the Western point of view. So much of the Western point of view says the body is bad and enlightenment is in the spirit that isn't in the body. My background is Judaism and Kabbalah, and we embrace the body. Very, very much embrace the body, which always shocks people, right? Like, no, like how can that be? How can it be patriarchal? I'm like, don't put tags on things. Just accept the fact that this is a tradition that embraces the body. It just does. And I think you are so right in saying to people, you can't find that spiritual expression for yourself if you don't include all of yourself, if you don't fully incarnate into this body, which you clearly have. Can I move you from, and I definitely want people to find the School for Heroines and reach out to you as a coach, and also to take your workshops. But you're also an actor and a singer, so I want so let's get to that too. Yes.
I'm coaching into fab.
Yes. I am thinking that your heroine's journey, the awareness of that has led, and I know that was a long journey and people usually just see the end. You do have an HBO special coming out. Can you touch on the HBO, and then we'll go backwards into how you got there, because I want to make sure we don't miss that.
Yeah, it's a fun story, right? Okay, thank you. I wish we had time to talk about. I want to interview you next about Kabbalah, and you've told me about in Judaism about the lunar cycle, but that's for another time because
You will have to come back on the show, and we will talk about that.
Right? So, well, that's just duly noted for later, and I had to say it so that my brain wouldn't go insane.
Okay, I'm going to write that down. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, got it.
Yes. So next week, December 9th, on HBO and HBO Max, there will be a documentary. It's a docu-horror hybrid. So it's both a documentary film. It's a true story.
Okay.
It's filmed to give people, I haven't seen it yet, but I know the filmmakers told me they filmed it to give the people the experience of watching like a popcorn movie, you know? And it's got some scares. It's not too scary. Like I would let my 10-year-old nephew watch it.
Okay.
Though he watches a lot of stuff. But it's there are scary moments, but it's also this amazing investigation into this crazy, wild tale that's true that happened in Scottsboro, Alabama. It's called Alabama Snake. And it is the story of a Pentecostal preacher who was accused, and I can tell you because it's part of the story, convicted of attempted murder of his wife, that's who I play, by a rattlesnake bite. And then the story is fascinating because there are so many different, all the different people involved. They're all mostly still alive. The man is still alive. The wife is still alive. Their son, who I met in real life, is obviously he's with us. He was very young at the time. This happened in 1991. So many people say, there are people who say, no, he didn't do it. She did it and staged it. And then there are people who say, oh, you know, he did it. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who say, well, they were religious, of the religious order of Christianity where they dance with snakes and drink poison. Mm-hmm. So of course something like this would happen. And then there's all these other stories about what happened. So as the tagline says, it's not a story you hear every day. Relationships, religion, and murder. So, I don't know why I laughed when I said that. I guess to shake off the energy of the murder part.
Well, it is a pretty unique description.
It's very unique.
Mm-hmm.
I had an amazing time being a part of this project. We got to film it in Alabama for 3 weeks over the summertime. And it was in Scottsboro, Alabama, which was already a place of historic renown because of the Scottsboro Boys trial and civil rights, which is something I grew up being an ally for. It was very important growing up, still very important in my life. But I also was very curious about the Pentecostal religion because I'd never experienced, I mean, I grew up singing in an ELCA Lutheran church, but I'd never experienced that level of ecstatic Christianity.
Yes.
I will say I have spent a lot of time in ashrams in India doing Kundalini yoga, doing a lot of breath work. And so I did understand the blending of the mystic and the spiritual and the physical through breath, through chanting or prayer and singing. But I learned a lot about an aspect of religion and an aspect of approaching the word and religion in our country, in the U.S. I've heard I know there are Pentecostal churches in other, and this is a very specific sect of the Pentecostal church, because not every Pentecostal church, of course, does the dancing with snakes or drinks the poison. Mm-hmm. It's based on a verse in the book of Matthew that says that if the Spirit is within you, you will speak in tongues, you can drink poison, it will not kill you, you can handle serpents and they shall not kill you. Mm-hmm. Not every Pentecostal church does that, but there are a handful that do it, even though it's illegal in a lot of these states also. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say too much more, but it's a fascinating story.
So you're the wife.
I played Darlene. She was the wife. Mm-hmm.
So, so let's just remind everybody, it's December 9th.
December 9th.
Alabama Snake, HBO. Right.
Yes.
And is it a movie?
It's a movie.
It's a movie. Okay. So all right. So amazing, and congratulations, because
Thank you.
That's wonderful. How did let's just talk, I just want you to talk about the acting, singing part of your journey. There
Yeah.
are so many people who feel that people get there like they were discovered and it just happened, and that's so not true. And there are people who want that and maybe want the big stage, the big screen, want HBO, but also might be perfectly happy in smaller productions and smaller venues. Talk to me about because you moved to LA, so you will have this big journey, you realize you need to do this, you moved to LA. How did the heroine's journey help you to keep going? I grew up in LA. I grew up just north of Hollywood. I know how many people want to be a star. Talk to me a little bit about how the heroine's journey helped you.
Thanks. You know, I think like everything in my life, it's been yet another circular journey, because I moved here when I got to the point where it was, as Anais Nin says, right, it was more painful to stay tight in the bud than to blossom. Yes. It was just what I needed to do for myself.
Yes.
And I love being an actor and a writer in Hollywood, even though it is also the most insane thing in the world. So I've had people say, like, you know, my kid wants to be an actor, what should I do? And I'm like, well, first of all, do it now. It's so much easier when you're young. You get chances when you're young that are just much harder to come by when you're older. I hate that about Hollywood. But if you got a kid who wants to do it, great. But if you're a grown-ass adult, sorry, I don't know if you should.
That's okay.
If you're a grown-up adult, sorry about that. My inner sailor just came out. Ahoy.
I have one too. It's fine.
Okay. I should have been more thoughtful. Oh, but if you're a grown-up adult and you want to do this and it's that important to you, then you should do it. And I will also add, we're living in the world of YouTube and regional production. Atlanta is as important as Los Angeles practically right now, almost. And there's production across the country, and in every country there's so many ways to create content and put it out there that it doesn't really matter in the old-fashioned way that it used to matter. And I love that. I love access for more people, more ages, more sizes, more genders, more races, more colors, more whatever.
Whatever
it is. Everything. Myself, I moved here, and I did it totally wrong. I didn't have any savings. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job.
Yeah, that is how we do stuff sometimes, us Renaissance women. We're just, I need to go there now, and I shall.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Right.
Yes.
No, not. You know, I'm a fairy godmother. I'm not a fairy. So, meaning I'm not like an airy fairy. Oh, I'll just. Right. It wasn't totally impractical. I mean, for goodness sake, I'm from Minnesota, so I am practical by, you know.
And you start your day with an academic syllabus or your week, so we know that you're structured. Yes, we know that about you. Okay.
Right, because I would definitely advocate for most people show up with a little bit of savings in your bank account.
Probably a good idea, just in general. Yes.
Right. I had spent the previous 9 years touring around the country in broken down old vans with musicians, so my life journey had been different already up until that point. But you know what? I just knew I was meant to be here, and I always was. From the time I was little, I knew I was meant to live in LA. And it's weird because I knew I moved here, having only visited here one time very briefly with a friend, but I always understood LA, the map, the city. I always already knew how to get anywhere without consulting GPS or Thomas Guide. And a friend of mine was like, well, maybe you've just watched so many movies, but I don't believe that. I believe I was just meant to be here, and I just got it. I just got it right away. And even the very second day that I was here, I ended up getting, a friend of mine said, you should go sign up to do background work. And I signed up, and in the morning, I got a call for, can you be here right now? And then when I showed up on set, the first AD, I was doing background work, the first AD gave me a prized SAG voucher, which, for those who don't know, to enter the union, you either need to get Taft-Hartley'd, meaning you are the only person available or suitable to do a specific role, and therefore they will use a law called the Taft-Hartley, or an act to use the Taft-Hartley to induct you into the union, or you can get 3 vouchers as an extra, as a background actor, and then you can join. Or of course, if you're in a sister union, depending on the union, there might be a way to do that also. Anyway, but I mean, it was like a sign. Those are things. There are people who will live and work and do background work and audition for commercials and audition for things for 10, 15 years and not get to join SAG. It was just like a sign from the universe for me. And within a week, I had a place to live. I had a couple jobs. I had a music producer interested in signing me to his label.
Wow.
You know, I just had that energy. And then, of course, it didn't continue to be that lucky for me the entire time, and there were all kinds of ups and downs.
Well, it's still a heroine's journey, right? It isn't simply, right, an elevator to the top. It still is that journey, right?
Right.
But all of those signs at the beginning are fantastic. Having, like I said, grown up just north of Hollywood and LA stomping ground and still go back all the time, Santa Monica, family there, there is something about that you either resonate with LA, Southern Cal, or you don't.
Right. And it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, absolutely. So
I have a number of very talented actor friends who tried it here and then returned to Minneapolis to do theater because they just liked Minneapolis better. I mean, even Prince himself said, I like LA, I just like Minneapolis better, you know, and I think that's great. That's great. You know?
So we are, if you can believe it or not, we're getting close to the end of our time together.
What?
And I absolutely want you back on to have another conversation at whenever you want. You have an open invitation because I know that you're so busy. But you have an open invitation to come back for more conversations. But I want to take you back to, because LA is a rough town. Hollywood is a rougher part of, and for those of you who haven't been there, we say LA and we mean almost everything from La Jolla, on the south side maybe, north to past Encino. I mean, we say LA and we mean all of it.
Right, the
whole thing, because it's LA. So what I want to know is, this is tough stuff you've done and inspiring stuff. What still inspires you?
Oh, thank you. Well, I have to say, when I think about this little girl version of Erin with her big Coke bottle glasses and her funky hair that was always funky when I was little, always funky, right. And I was just chubby and lovable and always I loved clothes, but I didn't know how to put them together when I was little, and so I would wear skirts over jeans and weird sweater vests with a hat, and none of it matched. I was a funky little kid.
Right, yeah.
And if I think about her big eyes and her dreams, that keeps me, I know it sounds insane, but sometimes I just keep talking to 8-year-old Erin, like, oh my gosh, I love you so much, little girl. Mm-hmm. Wait till you see how life is unfolding for you. Right. And then in the hard parts, I just returned to this place in my heart. I mean, I went through some really hard things here.
I'm sure.
And I just, like anybody who's lived here long enough, especially pre-#MeToo, there are many journeys there. Mm-hmm. Let alone, I was here just in time for the first financial crisis. That was not fun. But I just keep going to my heart, and I think, well, what is it? Who am I truly? And what do I truly need to feed my soul? Mm-hmm. Because for me, that's always just been, I don't want to say more important than other things, but the foundation for everything.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's what inspires me. And then there's other things, like I truly love, one of the reasons I love doing coaching or writing roles for other people, mm-hmm. not just for myself, is because I love watching other people blossom. It's like the same thing when you watch the Olympics, or when you watch, rest in peace, Diego Maradona, when you watch that soccer player do that hand of God goal, or when you watch him play, there's this joy that feels extra human. It feels like it's the divine channeling through him. Absolutely. When he's playing soccer. And I think I want to honor that.
And which is lovely. And I'm only stopping you because we're so close to the end of time. But I want to say that is why I wanted you on the show. because the tagline is inspiring a Renaissance of spirit, or igniting a Renaissance of spirit in people, and that is what gives me joy, and that I resonate so much with the go back to your heart. I was the chubby, big glasses, wild, crazy hair, didn't know how to dress, who wanted to be a writer. And every turn I took, somebody blocked that. And yet, right, and I wanted to be a speaker. And here I am on this amazing radio station, talking to you, one book done, another in the, right, on the conveyor belt. And if nobody, I'm not trying to write bestsellers. Somebody was talking to me about what I had to do to have a bestseller. I'm like, I write. And I want people to read it and feel changed and inspired. And laugh and have fun with it. But I still have to write, even if they don't. So listen, we are out of time. I want to thank you. I want to, you're coming back on whenever you want. I want to remind people that they can go to, and if you don't know how to spell it, it's ERINCARERE, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
Just Google that. You'll find her everywhere. The Heroine School. She's a coach. Oh, and you can still find me. Remember, lisarobin.com. You can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on KUHS Denver, and I am absolutely here for you as a coach, as an astrologer, as a channeler. The next show, just so you know, is December 17th, and it is going to be women starting businesses. And we're going to have some advice on how to do it and some amazing women on. So, Erin, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I want to just give you a few wishes. I want you to stay well. I want you to stay safe. But most importantly, I want you to stay inspired. Thank you for joining us on the Dr. Elisa Show. See you next time.